A young gorilla rises in fear, its tiny limbs trapped in the crushing coils of a giant anaconda. The snake's muscles contract, inch by inch, threatening to break every bone in its small body. Dust fills the air, kicked up by its frantic struggle in the middle of a weathered asphalt road. From the trees, the mother gorilla's roar shatters the calm. It's not a sound of aggression, but of pure, heart-stopping terror. She barrels through the undergrowth, a force of nature driven by a singular, primal purpose: to save her child. The anaconda, sensing the new, massive threat, rears its head. Its black, unblinking eyes fix on the approaching mother. A forked tongue tastes the air, hissing aggressively toward the magnificent silverback who now stands before it. The confrontation is electric, a standoff between two of the jungle's most formidable creatures. In a display of sheer power and desperation, the mother gorilla slams her fists on the ground. The impact reverberates through the very earth, a deafening drumbeat of maternal fury as she confronts the deadly reptile. The battle line has been drawn. But how did this idyllic morning in the African jungle turn into such a horrifying spectacle? To understand the desperation of this moment and the incredible events that would follow, we must go back just a few minutes earlier. The day began in peace. In a sun-drenched clearing, deep within a low-grass acacia forest, a troop of gorillas went about their morning ritual. The air was warm, filled with the gentle sounds of the wild. The buzz of insects, the distant call of a bird, and the soft grunts of the gorilla family. Among them was a young gorilla, barely 2 years old. His entire world was a playground of new sights and sounds. He was a bundle of energy and curiosity, his dark eyes wide with the wonder of discovery. While the adults foraged and groomed, the young gorilla chased a vibrant blue butterfly, his small hands batting playfully at the air as it fluttered just out of reach. His mother watched him from a short distance. She was a majestic figure, her silver back a sign of maturity and strength. But her gaze on her child was one of gentle vigilance. She allowed him this small bubble of independence, knowing that exploring was how he would learn the ways of the forest. It was a trust given by millions of years of instinct. The butterfly led the young gorilla farther from the troop toward a strange, straight line that cut through their territory, an old man-made road. The asphalt was gray and cracked, a fading scar on the landscape, its edges blurred by encroaching grass. To the young gorilla, it was just another part of his world to explore. This was the deceptive tranquility of the jungle, where danger often wears the cloak of stillness. The air above the road shimmered in the heat, creating a subtle distortion that hid the reality of what lay waiting. The road was a line between the familiar safety of the forest and a zone of unseen peril. As the young gorilla stepped from the soft earth onto the hard, warm surface of the road, the world changed in an instant. From the tall grass at the road's edge, there was a blur of patterned motion. The anaconda, perfectly camouflaged, had been lying in wait, its body absorbing the sun's warmth from the asphalt. It didn't rattle or hiss a warning. It simply struck. The attack was silent, swift, and brutally efficient. Before the young gorilla could even process the new shape, he was ensnared. The initial shock gave way to pure terror. As the first coil wrapped around his small torso, his playful squeaks turned into sharp, panicked cries. Back in the clearing, his mother's head snapped up. The soft, watchful expression vanished, replaced by one of absolute alarm. Her entire demeanor transformed from a nurturing parent into a ferocious protector. As the young one's cries pierced the air, her instincts took over completely. But she wasn't the only one who heard them. Miles away, following the very same road, two men were about to drive straight into the heart of this primal battle. The mother gorilla reached the scene in a storm of crashing foliage and furious roars. She immediately began her desperate rescue attempt, grabbing at the thick muscular body of the anaconda, pulling and tearing, her immense strength on full display. But it was like trying to unbend a bar of living steel. The anaconda's power wasn't in striking, but in squeezing. Its coils were a perfectly engineered trap, and every time the mother gorilla pulled, the snake seemed to respond by tightening its grip. Her roars became more frantic, a heartbreaking mix of rage at the attacker and fear for her child. It was this chaotic scene that greeted Ranger Mark and Ranger David as their two jeeps rounded a bend in the road. They stopped abruptly, the dust settling to reveal the life-or-death struggle. Mark, a veteran ranger with 20 years of experience etched into the lines on his face, immediately assessed the situation. David, younger and driven by a fiery impulse to help, was already opening his door to rush in. "Hold on." Mark's voice was sharp, stopping David in his tracks. He put a firm hand on his younger colleague's shoulder. "Think, David, think. We have to do something," David said, his voice tense. "It's killing him." "I know," Mark replied, his eyes never leaving the scene. "But look at her." He gestured to the mother gorilla. "If we move in now, she won't see us as saviors. She'll see us as two more threats in a world that has suddenly turned on her child. She'll tear us apart before we get within 10 feet. Mark's assessment was chillingly accurate. A cornered silverback, especially a mother defending her young, possesses a strength that defies comprehension, enough to snap branches as thick as a man's leg. Her protective instinct is absolute and all-consuming. An intervention, no matter how well-intentioned, could be a death sentence for the rangers themselves and would do nothing to help the young gorilla. They were trapped in a terrible dilemma. Every second they waited, the anaconda's coils constricted further, squeezing the very life from the small body they held. The young gorilla's struggles became weaker, its chest rising and falling in shallow, desperate gasps. Its eyes, wide with terror just moments before, began to glaze over. The ticking clock was no longer measured in minutes, but in heartbeats. They watched, helpless for a moment, as the mother gorilla's own frantic efforts failed and a horrifying stillness began to fall over her child. The light was draining from its world. For Mark and David, the time for hesitation was over. The choice was made for them. They had to act, no matter the cost. "Grab the poles, now," Mark commanded, his voice calm but charged with urgency. They moved with practiced efficiency, pulling two long, sturdy poles from the back of their jeep. These were simple tools, normally used for pushing back thorny brush or testing the stability of ground. But today, they would be weapons in a desperate fight. Their approach was a masterclass in reading animal behavior. They moved slowly, cautiously, never directly at the mother gorilla, but in a wide arc. She saw them, and a new roar ripped from her throat. This one torn between her focus on the anaconda and the new potential threat of the humans. She was trapped in an impossible trinity of fear. "This is our chance," Mark yelled. "David, you distract. I'll go for the lever." As David jabbed his pole toward the anaconda's tail, drawing its attention, Mark moved in. He wedged the end of his own pole into the tight space between a thick coil and the young gorilla's fragile ribs. He put his entire body weight into it. using the pole as a lever. The muscles of the anaconda were like stone, but under the focused pressure, there was a slight give. The anaconda reacted violently. Its body thrashed, throwing the mother gorilla back a step for a terrifying second. Its head whipped around, mouth agape, striking at the air just inches from Mark's leg. But David was relentless, striking the snake's body with hard, repeated thumps from his pole. Not to injure it, but to shock and disorient it. The coordinated attack was working. The anaconda was being challenged on multiple fronts, its predatory focus completely broken. With a final, desperate heave from Mark, a crucial coil loosened. It was the break they needed. The intricate knot of muscle began to unravel. Overwhelmed and under attack, the anaconda's survival instinct finally overrode its predatory one. It unspooled with shocking speed, and in a flash of brown and yellow, slithered off the road and vanished into the impenetrable green of the jungle. A sudden deafening silence fell upon the road. The immediate threat was gone, but the victory felt hollow. The fight was over, but the war for life was not. On the dusty asphalt lay the limp, motionless body of the young gorilla. The mother gorilla rushed to its side, nudging it gently with her nose. Then again, more insistently. There was no response. She let out a soft, low sound. Not a roar of fury, but a mournful cry of pure grief. The fight against the anaconda was over, but now a much more delicate fight, for the young gorilla's life was about to begin. The air was thick with tension, more profound than before. The violent struggle was replaced by a heartbreaking stillness. Ranger Mark knew what he had to do, and he knew it was the most dangerous thing he had attempted in his entire career. He handed his pole to David and took a small medical kit from his belt. He took a deep breath and began to walk forward. He moved without aggression, his hands open and visible. He didn't look directly into the mother gorilla's eyes, a sign of challenge, but kept his gaze soft and directed at the motionless young gorilla. David stood back, his own heart pounding, ready to create a diversion if things went wrong. The mother gorilla watched Mark's every move. Her massive form was tense, a coiled spring of power and grief. Her instinct, honed over generations, would be to neutralize any perceived threat to her child, especially now in its most vulnerable state. Mark stopped a few feet away and knelt down, making himself smaller. He said nothing, letting his posture and calm demeanor do the talking. Then, the most terrifying, most incredible thing happened. The mother gorilla looked from her child to the approaching human, and back again. In her dark, intelligent eyes, a decision was made. It was an act that defied all laws of the wild. She looked at Mark, and with an almost imperceptible movement, gently nudged the body of her young gorilla slightly forward. It was a gesture of concession, a gesture of trust. Mark moved in, his hands shaking slightly. He placed 2 fingers on the young gorilla's chest. He felt it, a pulse, but terrifyingly weak and thready. He had seconds. He began performing gentle chest compressions, a strange and delicate sight. The large, weathered hands of a man trying to restart the heart of a wild animal, all under the watchful eye of its powerful mother. He then took a cold pack from his kit, activated it, and placed it on the young gorilla's head to reduce the swelling. The mother gorilla rumbled a low, continuous sound from deep in her chest, but she did not move to stop it. She simply watched. It felt like an eternity. Then, a cough, a tiny sputtering sound that broke the spell of silence. The young gorilla's small chest heaved, and it took a shaky, ragged breath. Its eyelids fluttered open. Instantly, The mother gorilla reached down and gently scooped up her baby, cradling it to her chest. She inspected it, her large fingers softly stroking its fur, her low rumbles now sounding like a purr of relief. Before turning to leave, she did one last thing. She looked directly at Mark and David. For a long, profound moment, her gaze held theirs. There was no anger in it, no fear. There was something else, something that passed beyond the barrier of species, an unmistakable look of acknowledgement, of understanding. Then, as quietly as she had arrived in a fury, she turned and melted back into the shadows of the jungle, her child safe in her arms. Mark and David stood alone on the road, the silence of the forest returning. They had witnessed the raw violence of nature, but they had also been part of a miracle, a bridge of trust, built in a moment of utter desperation. This story serves as a powerful reminder that the bond between a mother and child is a universal language, and that courage and empathy are not exclusively human traits. It shows that we share this world in more ways than we know, connected by invisible threads of life, loss, and love.